She'll forget everything in a few weeks. Just give her the pills. She's already gone. That's what I heard. That's the last thing I remember my son saying. And then he walked away. I was sitting on a hospital bed, in a thin cotton gown that didn't even cover my back.
No coat. No suitcase.
Just a folder on the counter with my name in bold, black marker. Mary Lorraine Thatcher. Age 78. I wasn't gone. I was right there. People think when you're old you don't feel things the same way. That somehow time makes heartbreak softer. Doesn't. It just makes it quieter. I watched my son David sign some papers, thank the woman behind the desk like they were checking into a hotel, then walk out the glass doors without even looking back. He didn't even take the family photo off my nightstand. It was like I had died, and they were just storing the body. I always thought it'd be cancer, or a stroke, or just plain sleep, but I never imagined this to be left. On purpose. By your own flesh and blood. They wheeled me into the room.
No windows.
Just buzzing lights and the faint smell of disinfectant and despair. I asked them, "How long will I be here?" The nurse, a woman who looked like she hadn't smiled since 1995, just said, "As long as they're paying, hon." Then she handed me a cup with 3 little pills and a tiny paper cup of lukewarm water. I didn't take them. Not yet. I don't know what hurt worse, the betrayal or the silence that followed. David didn't call. Not even once. Neither did his wife Janet. And my granddaughter Lila? The little girl who used to braid my hair while we watched cartoons on Sunday mornings. Nothing. They erased me. Like a smudge on a whiteboard. It's funny. I spent 40 years cleaning up after them. Folding their shirts, cooking their meals, holding their hands when they were sick. And now when I needed someone to hold mine, there was no one. After a week I started noticing things. One nurse, Veronica, always lingered a bit too long. Her eyes would scan my meds, then the chart. One night I pretended to be asleep. She swapped one of my pills for something else, smaller, darker. I didn't say anything. Not yet. A man in the room across from me screamed every night. They said he had dementia. But one night I heard him yell, "Don't take the money. Don't take the money." That didn't sound like dementia. That sounded like guilt. And just like that I realized something. This place wasn't just a warehouse for the dying. It was a vault. A secret vault where families put the inconvenient truths they didn't want to face. And I was one of them. But I wasn't going to rot. Not quietly. Something inside me clicked. Something old. Something strong. They might have locked me in here. But I was still Mary Lorraine Thatcher. And they were about to remember that name. Even if it was the last thing I ever did. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to stay updated with our latest stories. They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're dying. Mine didn't. It just slowed down into minutes I could feel. Minutes that stretched out like years inside that room with no windows. Every tick of the clock was like a knock on a coffin lid. And you know what's worse than being buried alive? Being buried while you're still breathing. And everyone pretending you're already gone. I didn't cry the first night. Didn't scream. Didn't ask to go home. You'd think I would've. That any woman dumped in a nursing home by her only son would have caused a scene. But I didn't. I sat still. I stared at the wall. And I let the silence sink into my bones. Because the truth is, I wasn't shocked. I was ashamed I'd let myself believe for so long that David still loved me. He used to, you know, when he was little. He'd sneak into my bed during thunderstorms and whisper, "Don't let the thunder take me, Mama." I'd kiss his forehead and say, "I'll fight the whole sky if I have to." Now, he let a receptionist with cheap perfume and a clipboard hand me over like a stray cat.
No hug. No explanation.
Not even an "I'm sorry." The second night I couldn't sleep. Not from the pain in my hips but from the noise. Someone, maybe the man next door, was crying. Not a sob. Just that soft, wounded sound you make when the world forgets you exist. I knew that sound. I was making the same one. In the morning they brought breakfast on a beige plastic tray. Gray eggs. Cold toast. And a tiny cup of pills with no label. I asked, "What's this one?" Pointing at the blue capsule. The nurse Veronica looked annoyed. It's for your memory.
Ich zerrte her.
I don't have memory problems. She clicked her pen like I was a bug she couldn't squash yet. Doctor's orders. I didn't take it. Instead, I stuffed it under my tongue and spit it into a napkin when she turned her back. Something wasn't right. And I wasn't going to sleepwalk through my own betrayal. Later that day, a social worker came in, clipboard in hand, fake sympathy in her eyes. Said her name was Deborah, but I could call her Deb. She asked about my estate, my will, my power of attorney. I asked her if she wanted to know what my favorite color was first. She didn't laugh. I'm just here to help, she said, crossing her legs like she was settling in for a routine. I smiled. Then help me understand why my son signed over my house before I even got here. She froze. Her pen stopped clicking. So I knew I was right. See, I hadn't told anyone yet. But 3 days before David dropped me off, I got a letter from the county recorder's office. Said there was a transfer of deed. Signed by me. Only I never signed a damn thing. And now? Here I was trapped in a place where my signature suddenly didn't seem to matter. I kept quiet. Because if they thought I was slipping, maybe they'd talk louder around me. And I needed to hear what they were really saying. That night, I heard Veronica whispering outside my door. Something about moving her to Unit C soon. The memory wing. I felt sick. They were trying to erase me. Not just from the world, from myself. But you can't erase someone who remembers everything. I remembered my mother's screams during childbirth. I remembered the blood on my hands when my husband fell off that ladder. I remembered raising a boy into a man who now treated me like a bad memory he was embarrassed to keep. And I remembered something else. A name. One I hadn't said in over 40 years. Clara May. She was my best friend back in school. We lost touch. Life got in the way. But a few years ago, I heard from a neighbor that Clara had started volunteering at a local hospice nearby. So I prayed. I prayed she hadn't moved. I prayed she still remembered me. And I prayed she would answer the letter I'd written with shaking hands and hidden under a tray in the common room, praying that Veronica wouldn't notice when I asked the janitor to mail it. Because if anyone could help me now, it was Clara. She once pulled me out of a burning barn when we were 12. I hoped she'd do it again, even if this time the fire was slower, colder, and had a name, David. On the 4th night, the lights went out. Not just flickered out. Complete blackness. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Then my door creaked open. A shadow stepped inside. For a moment I thought it was Clara. I even said her name. But the voice that answered back wasn't hers. Sleep tight, Mrs. Thatcher. Things are about to get easier. And just like that, the door closed. I didn't sleep. I held my breath. Because in that moment I knew. They weren't just trying to forget me. They were trying to finish me. And I wasn't going to let them. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes no one's coming to save her. For me, that moment came on a Wednesday morning at 4:12 a.m. I was wide awake, sitting in the dark, listening to the buzzing exit sign in the hallway, and the faint hum of the security camera outside my room. And then I heard it. Whispers. 2 voices. Low.
Urgent.
One was definitely Veronica, that nurse who always smiled too wide when she handed me my meds. The other. I couldn't tell. A man. Younger. Nervous. They were just outside my door, near the water cooler. They didn't know I was awake. They never did. They assumed I'd taken the night pills. The ones that made people quiet, sluggish, forgetful. But I hadn't taken a single one in 4 nights. I just tucked them into the lining of my pillowcase like secrets. Did she sign yet? The man asked. No, Veronica hissed. She's playing dumb. Or maybe she's sharper than they told us. David said she wouldn't be a problem. I stopped breathing. David. My son. My own flesh and blood. He had spoken to them. Arranged something. They knew each other. I leaned closer to the door. Every word felt like a blade carving something out of me. Veronica sighed. We just need the paperwork finished. Once it's official, he'll get the payout. The sooner she's moved to C-Wing, the better. The payout? Payout for what? My stomach turned. It wasn't just betrayal now, it was business. I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a transaction. They moved on down the hallway, but their voices echoed in my chest long after they were gone. So many things started clicking. The memory pills I didn't need. The transfer of my house I never signed. The lack of windows in my room, like they didn't want me to see the outside world, or be seen. They were making a version of me, one that was easier to forget. And they were almost done. The next day I tried to act normal. Weak. A little confused. I asked Veronica, "Did my husband come by yesterday?" "I think he said he would." Her smile was cold. "Your husband passed away 10 years ago, sweetie. Remember?" "Oh," I said softly. "Yes, I remember now." But I didn't forget a damn thing. Later that afternoon, a man in a suit visited the nursing home. I saw him through the crack in my door. He didn't go to any other rooms. He came straight to mine. "Mrs. Thatcher?" he asked, stepping inside. I nodded, though everything in me screamed to push him out. "My name is Mr. Locke. I'm here regarding your financial paperwork. Just a few things to clarify." He pulled out a manila envelope and a pen. I saw the logo at the top of the first page. Evergreen Legal Consultants. That's the same law firm David once used when he filed for bankruptcy 5 years ago. "Just standard confirmations," Locke said. "You've agreed to transfer all decision-making rights to your son, correct?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "No," I said. "I never signed anything." His expression barely changed. "It's all been notarized, ma'am." "Then your notary is a liar." He paused, shifted his weight, and said quietly, "With all due respect, ma'am, your current mental status may make your claims difficult to validate." My hands clenched under the blanket. They wanted me to doubt myself. They wanted everyone else to doubt me too. He left 5 minutes later, but not before slipping the envelope under my pillow and whispering, "Just sign and it'll all get easier." I didn't sign. Instead, I opened it. It was a power of attorney form. Dated. Witnessed. Stamped. My signature was on it. Only, I didn't sign it. The handwriting was close, but not mine. A forgery. And not a good one. But they didn't care. Because in their eyes I was already lost. Already drifting into dementia. Already silent. They were wrong. That night I walked slowly to the dining hall phone while the night staff was busy with meds. I pretended to make a call to a niece. But I wasn't calling family. I was calling Clara May. She hadn't responded to my hidden letter yet. But I knew her number by heart. I'd carried it in my wallet for years, under a photo of my wedding ring, the one David pawned 3 months before he dropped me here. The phone rang 5 times. Then her voice. "Hello. Clara?" I whispered, barely holding the phone. "It's me. Mary." Silence. Then a soft gasp. "Mary? Mary Lorraine? Where are you?" I choked back a sob. "He left me. David. I'm in a place called Cedar Pines. In the West Wing.
No windows.
Something's wrong here. Oh my God." And in that moment I felt it, the tiniest flicker of hope. "I'm coming," she said. "Don't move. Don't sign anything." Then the line went dead. 2 days passed. No word. No sign. But I kept listening. And on the 3rd day, just before lunch, I heard it again. Whispers. This time they were talking about Lila. My granddaughter. "She was asking questions," a voice said. "She wants to visit her grandma." "She's not on the approved list," Veronica answered. "David's orders. They said she's been calling every day." Veronica hissed. "We can't let her in. Not until it's finished." Something inside me snapped. Lila. My little girl. My Sunday morning angel. She still remembered me. And she was trying. That night I wrote a letter. To Lila. I couldn't trust the mail, so I handed it to the janitor, George. A quiet man with kind eyes who always left an extra biscuit on my tray. "Can you give this to the girl who came asking about me?" I whispered. He looked at me, then the sealed envelope. And he nodded. 2 nights later I heard a knock. Not on my door. On the emergency exit just down the hallway. I sat up. Heart pounding. Then I saw it. A face peeking through the tiny square window. It was her. Lila. Tears ran down her cheeks. She mouthed, "I love you." Before I could move, I heard footsteps coming down the corridor. And just like that, she disappeared into the night. But that 1 second, that glimpse of love, it reminded me I wasn't dead yet. And the people trying to erase me, they had no idea what I still had left. Because I wasn't going to fight this with fists or screaming. I was going to fight it the way women like me always have. With memory. With quiet rage. With truth that doesn't need to shout to be heard. They thought they had me. Old. Frail. Foggy. They didn't know I was taking notes. Not on paper, not on a phone, but up here. In my mind. Every face. Every whisper. Every lie. And then came the day that changed everything. It started with the wrong lunch tray. That's it. Just the wrong lunch tray. A nurse I hadn't seen before. Young, probably new. Brought me chicken with mashed potatoes and cranberry juice. I hadn't eaten chicken since my gallbladder surgery 20 years ago. "This isn't mine," I told her. She frowned. "Check the tag." "Oh, sorry, this is for Margaret Thatcher." My heart stopped. "That's me," I said slowly. She looked confused. "No, it's for the other Margaret Thatcher. In room 218. I hadn't heard of any other Thatcher. Room 218 was 2 doors down. I'd never seen anyone go in or out. The nurse took the tray and hurried away, but something gnawed at me. Another Thatcher? And she was receiving my lunch? I waited until 2 p.m., when the halls were mostly quiet, and then I took my walker and shuffled down the hallway. Took me 5 minutes to reach room 218. The door was open just an inch, and inside, I saw her. Gray hair like mine. Eyes like mine. The same bone structure even. She looked up, confused at first. Then she smiled like she knew me. I stepped inside. "Hello, Margaret." She nodded gently. "I'm Mary. Mary Lorraine Thatcher." Her smile faltered. Then she said in a soft, broken voice, "I'm Mary Lorraine too." I sat down hard in the visitor's chair. We stared at each other, this ghost of a woman and me, like two halves of something that had been split apart long ago. Then she whispered, "They said I was mistaken." "What do you mean?" She looked around, scared. "They told me I remembered wrong. That I wasn't the real Mary. That I was confused. But I remember my house. The garden with the red swing. My son David. My granddaughter Lila." My skin went cold. No, 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 no. They hadn't just erased me. They had replaced me. Suddenly everything made sickening sense. The forged papers. The restricted visits. The memory pills. They'd brought this poor woman in, confused, maybe early dementia, and filled her head with parts of my life. Just enough to pass for legal. So when someone tried to question David or look into the will, they'd find her. And she'd say all the right things. Because she didn't know she wasn't me. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What kind of man could do this? What kind of son? I reached for her hand. Hers trembled in mine. "Do you remember your husband's name?" She hesitated. "Franklin." That was right. "And where did you grow up?" "Outside Tallahassee." Right again. Someone had fed her real facts. Bits of my past. And now she was being used as a stand-in. An actor in a play I didn't agree to. I squeezed her hand. "You're not crazy. You are Mary Lorraine. But so am I. They're using you." Tears filled her eyes. "They said I was sick. That you were a mistake. That I had to forget." I nodded slowly. "They want you quiet. But you remember what you can. And don't sign anything." She looked down at her lap, where a thin manila folder rested. "I already did," she said. "They said I had to." I opened it. Power of attorney. Medical consent. Property releases. All signed. In shaky, untrained handwriting. They'd made her sign as me, to make everything airtight. I stood, my knees shaking. I felt like I was going to collapse. I had to get out of there. Had to think. As I turned to leave, I heard her say softly behind me, "They said no one would come for me. That no one remembered me. But you did." I turned back. Her eyes, watery and distant, found mine. "Thank you," she whispered. Back in my room, I sank into the bed. Every bone in my body felt like it was screaming. This wasn't just betrayal. This was erasure. David hadn't just abandoned me. He'd replaced me with someone who barely remembered herself. And now they were using her to take what little I had left. But the truth? The truth has a way of clinging to people. Like dust on skin. You can try to wipe it away, but it always leaves a trace. And now I had proof. I had seen her. I had heard her. I had touched the papers. And someone else had too. Because that afternoon, someone else came to visit. Not David. Not Clara. Not Lila. It was a young man I didn't recognize. Late 20s. Pale suit. Nervous hands. He peeked into my room, then ducked in like he wasn't supposed to. "Are you Mary Lorraine Thatcher?" he whispered. "Yes," I said without hesitation. He looked over his shoulder, shut the door softly, and pulled a folder from his coat. "I'm with the Ombudsman's office. Anonymous complaint came through. Said there was a patient swap at this facility. That documents had been forged." I froze. Then I asked, "Who sent the complaint?" He hesitated, then whispered, "A girl named Lila." My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. She had found me. She had believed me. Even when the rest of the world told her I was gone. He handed me a paper. A formal statement. A place for me to write in my own hand the facts as I knew them. I wrote for 20 minutes straight. Every detail. Every lie. Every date. And at the bottom, I signed it in the clear, careful cursive I'd learned in 1952. Mary Lorraine Thatcher. The man nodded, took the folder and said, "We're going to look into it. But be careful. If they suspect something." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I knew what he meant. I was now a threat. And people like me? We don't get second chances. We either disappear quietly, or we fight. And I wasn't going anywhere. There are two kinds of silence in this world. One is peaceful, the kind you get in the morning before anyone wakes up, when the coffee's still brewing and the light is soft. The other? It's the kind of silence you find in a place like this. A nursing home where the living are treated like they're already ghosts. And in that kind of silence, secrets echo. Loud. It was just after breakfast, cold oatmeal again, no sugar, same tray, same pills I didn't take, when I noticed something strange. Veronica was flustered. That woman never got flustered. She ran that floor like a prison warden. But that morning she was panicked. Snapping at the young nurse. Clutching a brown envelope. I saw her shove it into the pocket of her cardigan, the one with the floral buttons, before storming into the back office. I don't know what made me follow her. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the voice in my head that had started whispering again. The one that said, "You're not crazy. They are." Whatever it was, I waited. I watched. She left the office 10 minutes later empty-handed. She didn't lock the door. I was careful. Careful like a woman who'd spent 78 years learning when to act and when to hold. I waited until the hall was clear. Then I slid into that tiny fluorescent-lit office and started looking. Not with panic, with purpose. Drawers. Folders. File cabinets. Most were locked. But the filing tray on the desk? Open. And that's where I found it. A letter. It was old. Creased. Written in blue ink on yellowing lined paper. It had my name on it, Mary Lorraine Thatcher, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was written by me. I didn't remember writing it. But as I read, my knees went weak. It started like this. "To whom it may concern, I, Mary Lorraine Thatcher, request to be placed in full-time care at Cedar Pines Medical. I no longer wish to live independently due to increasing memory issues." No. 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 That wasn't true. I never wrote that. But it was my handwriting. My style. My name. My signature at the bottom. Forged. Perfectly forged. They'd built the lie layer by layer. Fake letters. Fake visits. An entire trail of consent that never actually happened. I scanned the bottom. There in faint pencil was a name. Janet. David's wife. I suddenly remembered the day last year when she asked me to write out a list of my favorite meals. Just in case, she'd said. You know, for when you're older and need a little help. She must have used it as a template. Practice my cursive. Use the same pen. I almost screamed, but I didn't have time to mourn the betrayal. I heard footsteps hard and fast coming down the hall. I stuffed the letter under my robe, tucked it against my side like it was the last heartbeat I had left, and slipped out just as Veronica turned the corner. She didn't see me, but she felt something. Her eyes narrowed, scanned the hall. I kept walking, kept shaking. Back in my room, I locked the bathroom door and sat on the toilet, shaking, holding that letter like it was a grenade. Because it was. It was proof. It was the lie they never thought I'd find. But what could I do? I was still trapped, still alone, still an old woman with nothing but a brain they were trying to silence. So I did the one thing they hadn't accounted for. I wrote another letter. This time it was from me. Truly from me. To Lila. Sweetheart, they're trying to erase me. They replace me with another woman who doesn't know what's happening. They forged my signature. They're stealing my name, my home, and my mind. But I'm still here. I need you. I'm so proud of you for looking for me. Keep going. Don't stop. You are my last hope. I folded it 3 times. Taped the original fake letter inside. I tucked it into a paperback copy of Little Women from the common room, Lila's favorite, and slipped it into the donation bin near the chapel. George, the janitor, was there again. I looked him in the eye. Do you believe in justice? I asked. He nodded. I said, then make sure that book finds the girl who's looking for her grandma. He didn't ask questions. He just took the book. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that girl, the one in room 218, the one they called Mary Lorraine, even though she didn't know who she really was. She cried in her sleep, mumbled names. Franklin, David, me. We were mirrors. She was my reflection in a cracked glass. Used. Forgotten. But I still remembered who I was. And I wasn't going to die with that truth locked inside me. Around 3 a.m. the fire alarm went off. Just a chirp. A test. But it brought everyone into the hallway. Nurses. Orderlies. Staff. That's when I saw something. Veronica down at the nurses' station. On the phone. Yes, the ombudsman came, she whispered. No, she didn't talk. She just smiled and signed some nonsense. We're still good. Just need a few more days. Then we'll transfer her and be done with it. She laughed. And my heart cracked open. They still thought I was powerless. Still thought I hadn't figured it all out. That was their mistake. Because quiet people were always the ones watching. And sometimes it's the softest voices that scream the loudest when the moment comes. The next morning, George passed me a note folded into a napkin. For words. She got the book. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Then I whispered to myself, let's see how loud the truth can get. When you get old, people assume all your friends are either dead or confused. What they forget is we don't lose friends because we get old. We lose them because we stop trusting the world enough to reach out again. But I reached out. And Clara May answered. It happened 3 days after I sent Lila that book. The weather was grim. The kind of gray that settles into your bones like it's trying to freeze your hope from the inside out. The hall smelled like boiled cabbage and bleach. Lunch was mystery meat and mashed peas. I was pretending to eat when I heard my name on the intercom. Mary Lorraine Thatcher, you have a visitor. Please report to the front room. My heart stuttered. They never used my full name. And no one had visited in weeks. I set the tray down and stood up too fast, knees creaking, heart thumping, and shuffled toward the front, gripping my walker like it was the last solid thing in the world. When I turned the corner into the lobby, she was standing there. Clara May. Her hair was silver now, short and soft around her cheeks. But her eyes, they were still Clara's eyes. Sharp. Watching everything. Even when she looked calm. Mary Lorraine, she said, opening her arms. I didn't cry, not in front of the staff. But I walked into her arms like I was 17 again and the world hadn't fallen apart yet. She held me for a long time. Then pulled back and whispered, I got your letter. And I believe every word. We sat in the visitors' lounge. Just a row of plastic chairs and a vending machine that hadn't worked since the Obama administration, and I told her everything. The fake documents. The woman in room 218. The power of attorney. The whispers in the hall. The man from the ombudsman's office. Lila. And the letter I found, the one forged in my name. Clara listened without blinking. Then she pulled out a notepad from her bag and began writing. You always were the stubborn one, she said. I always had to be, I replied. She nodded. Good. Because it's time to raise hell the quiet way. Clara wasn't just a sweet old widow who liked to bake pies and volunteer at church. She had worked in patient advocacy for 30 years. She knew state laws. She knew what words to use. And she still had contacts. She reached out to a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Jasmine Lynn, the daughter of her late best friend, who now specialized in elder care fraud. Claire didn't waste time. I want Jasmine to meet you, she said. Privately. No paper trail. No calls. No signatures. Just eyes and ears. How? I asked. She smiled. Well, it's about time you took a field trip, don't you think? 2 days later, I had an appointment on the books. Cognitive reassessment, they called it. I was being sent to a partner facility for evaluation. Veronica signed the form with a smug smile. Probably thought she was fast-tracking my transfer to the memory unit. But she had no idea that the driver taking me there wasn't from Cedar Pines. Clara had pulled strings, arranged the switch. And when I climbed into that transport van shaking, clutching a warm blanket she'd packed for me, I knew this was my first real step toward freedom. The building we pulled up to wasn't a hospital. It was a law office. Quiet. Respectable. Brick walls and ivy on the windows. The driver helped me inside and sat me down in a soft leather chair. A woman stepped out from the back. Early 40s, clean suit, dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Thatcher, she said.
I'm Jasmine.
She listened as I told the story again, this time slower from the beginning. She never interrupted, just nodded, took notes, and asked for details. Can you describe the letter you found? I brought it, I said, handing it to her, folded carefully in the lining of my coat. She examined it, then looked up. This is damning. But not enough. My stomach sank. Then she leaned forward. But I believe you. And I'm going to help you. She asked if I could remember dates. I did. Every visit. Every pill. Every phrase. Every signature I never wrote. That's your weapon, she said. Memory. The thing they're trying to strip from you. You're going to use it to destroy this lie from the inside out. I sat there stunned. No one had said I was strong in weeks. No one had even seen me. But Jasmine? She saw the whole damn battlefield. She gave me a plan. 3 steps. Keep playing their game. Take the pills, hide them. Nods. Smiles. Confused face. Keep them relaxed. Document everything. Write when no one's looking. Hide your notes. Wait for the hearing. Because once Jasmine files her injunction, the court will call for a formal capacity assessment. And that's where I would prove everything. But to pull it off, I needed help on the inside. I needed someone in that facility who could be trusted. So I made the choice. When I got back to Cedar Pines, I waited for nightfall. Then I knocked softly on the door to room 218. She opened it, the other me. I smiled gently. Can I sit? She nodded. I know what they did, I told her. She blinked, confused. They told you that you're me. But you're not. You're your own person. You deserve the truth. She started crying before I even finished. I told her everything. Slowly. Kind. At the end, she just whispered, I don't want to be a lie. You're not, I said. You're a victim. Same as me. But you can help. She nodded. And she agreed. That night I wrote it all down. Folded the letter. Slipped it into the vent behind the toilet, our hiding spot now. The battle had begun. And for the first time since they left me here, I didn't feel helpless. I felt ready. People think when you get old you forget the past. But let me tell you something. It's not the memories that fade. It's the people who don't want you to remember them. After my secret meeting with Jasmine and my quiet alliance with the other Mary down in room 218, I started feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power. Not the kind you shout about. Not fists or fury. The quiet kind. The kind that lives in knowing something they don't think you know. And I had it now. But it still wasn't enough. We needed a crack. A single fault in their perfect little lie. And I found it. In the most unexpected place. The chapel. They call it the multi-faith room now, all beige carpet and fake candles. It smells like dust and loneliness. Most days it sits empty. But that Tuesday afternoon, while pretending to nap during group activity hour, I wheeled myself inside, not to pray, but to search. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that liars always leave crumbs. And there it was. Tucked behind the bookshelf, inside a donated leather Bible so worn it practically sighed when I opened it. A slip of paper. Old. Yellowed. Folded 3 times. I nearly dropped it when I saw the header. Last Will and Testament, Franklin James Thatcher, my husband. My late husband. I had asked David about the will years ago. He told me it had been taken care of. Said Daddy left nothing of value except the house, which was automatically his as next of kin. But I knew that wasn't true. Franklin was meticulous. He kept every receipt, every deed, every password. He even organized our emergency contact numbers alphabetically. There was no way he didn't write a will. With trembling hands I unfolded the pages. And there it was in clear, sharp ink. To my wife Mary Lorraine Thatcher, I leave all assets, properties and possessions, including our family home at 44 Sycamore Lane, to be retained by her until such time as she sees fit to pass it on. And then, underlined in bold, under no circumstance is this to be transferred to David Thatcher or his spouse prior to Mary's passing. I clutched the pages to my chest. David had lied. Again. I don't know how that will ended up behind a shelf in a chapel. Maybe Franklin left a copy for safekeeping. Maybe Clara had found it and hidden it years ago. Maybe the staff had buried it there, not realizing what it meant. But fate? Fate has a funny way of bringing back the truth when you least expect it. Now I had everything. The forged letters. The swapped patient. The fake power of attorney. And now, a will that proved David had gone directly against his father's last wishes. That night I met Clara in the garden. It was late. The staff thought I was asleep. She snuck through the back gate like she was 17 again. Flashlight in her purse and that old fire in her eyes. I handed her the will. She gasped. Mary, this is it. This is what we needed. We still need one more thing, I said. What's that? A witness. Because no matter how many papers you have, someone always finds a way to say you forged it, or you're confused, or you misremembered. But if someone else saw it too? Someone who could speak on my behalf? That would be the nail in David's coffin. And that someone was Lila. The next morning I asked George to deliver one last note. Just 4 words. Meet me. Garden. Tonight. I slipped it inside the same copy of Little Women, along with the will and a photo of me and Franklin on our wedding day. Lila had seen that photo 100 times. She used to call it my movie picture. I knew it would reach her. At 8:47 that night, I sat on the bench under the oak tree by the garden fence. Wind in my hair. Heart racing. And then she came. Dark hoodie. Backpack. Eyes red from crying. Grandma, she whispered. And I broke. I held her tight. Didn't let go. She wept into my shoulder. I knew it, she said. I knew they were lying. We didn't waste time. I handed her the documents. Told her about the will. About the other woman. About the pills. About everything. She listened like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. Because someday someone will try to silence her too. And now she'll know better. You need to make copies, I told her. Keep one with Jasmine. Keep one hidden. Don't tell your father anything. She nodded. What happens next? I looked her in the eye. We wait. And when they try to put me in the memory unit, Jasmine will be ready. She'll file the injunction. There will be a hearing. And you'll testify. She reached into her bag. I brought something too, she whispered. A flash drive. I tilted my head. What's on it? She smiled, that quiet, dangerous smile I hadn't seen since she was 10 and caught David stealing from my purse. A recording of Dad and Janet talking about transferring the house. I left my phone under the table last Sunday. They didn't know. That was the final crack in the dam, and I felt it break. Right there under the tree in the quiet night, holding the pieces of my life in my hands and knowing that for the first time, I had enough, not just to survive, but to be heard. We hugged again, this time longer, and when she walked away, disappearing into the dark like a shadow in a story, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Back in my bed, I stared at the ceiling. David would try again. He'd come soon. Try to push the papers through. Try to bury me before the hearing. But I was no longer alone. I had Lila. I had Clara. I had Jasmine. I even had the woman in room 218, who now greeted me with a nod each morning. Two ghosts who refused to vanish. And I had the truth. Truth so loud it didn't have to scream. They put me here thinking I'd die quietly. But instead, they gave me just enough time to burn the whole damn lie down. There are moments in life when time splits. Before Lila came back into my life, I was just surviving. After, I was fighting. Not with fists. With memory. With proof. With the kind of quiet fury only a grandmother can carry when the people she once held as babies tried to bury her. The next morning David showed up. Unannounced. Dressed like he was headed to court. Slick hair, crisp collar. That artificial smile he used to put on for church potlucks when he wanted to impress the neighbors. He hadn't visited me in 47 days. I counted. I kept track in the tiny calendar I scratched into the wood of my nightstand with the tip of a paperclip. He strolled into my room like he still owned the world. Hi, Mom. I didn't say a word. He pulled up a chair. You look good. They've been taking care of you, huh? I smiled. Small. Cold. I'm alive, I said. Despite your best efforts. He blinked. Laughed. Like I'd made a joke. Come on, Mom. Don't start that again. You're tired. It's been a rough couple months, I get it. I leaned in slowly, my eyes never leaving his. I found Dad's will. His smile cracked. Just a hair. I watched it happen. That split second when someone realizes the story they've been spinning is unraveling right in front of them. He recovered quickly, of course. Lawyers know how to lie with their faces. I don't know what you think you found, but I also found the forged power of attorney. The letters you had Janet fake. The other woman in room 218. And your recorded conversation about transferring the house. Now the smile was gone completely. He stood. You've been confused, Mom. I understand. This happens at your age. That's why we had to make some hard decisions. For your safety. No, David. You made decisions for your wallet. And now it's all coming back to bite you. His face changed. Not angry. Scared. And that fear tasted better than any meal I'd had since being dumped in this place. You don't have enough, he muttered. I leaned back against the pillow. You sure about that? The silence stretched long. Then he said almost casually, you know, if you just sign the new deed and drop this, we can move you to one of the nicer facilities. Bigger windows. Better food. You don't need to keep punishing yourself. I looked at him like he was a stranger, as maybe he always had been. I'm not punishing myself, I said. I'm punishing you. He stormed out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even glance back. And as the door clicked shut behind him, I knew what would come next. Retaliation. Sure enough, later that afternoon, Veronica came in with a clipboard. We've scheduled your transfer to C-Wing, she said. Effective tomorrow. That was the memory unit. The place you don't come back from. I looked her dead in the eye. Call Jasmine Lynn. I'm invoking patient protection under section 482.45. Her face went pale. That wasn't something I could have known by accident. That wasn't something a confused old woman mumbled by chance. Jasmine had taught me that phrase. Trained me on it. If they tried to move me before the hearing, I had the legal right to refuse and demand immediate investigation. Veronica left the room in a hurry. That night I didn't sleep. I waited. And just before dawn the message came. Slipped under my door. Emergency hearing granted. Monday. Tinham County Courthouse. JL. I held that paper in my hands like it was oxygen. 'Cause now we had a time. A date. A place. And I had a voice again. Sunday night Clara helped me pack. Not clothes, evidence. The forged letter. The hidden will. Photos. My calendar of David's absences. A notarized statement from the other Mary. George, bless him, printed the transcript of David and Janet's conversation that Lila had recorded. Everything. All of it went into a folder that Clara slipped into her purse, and we rehearsed what I'd say. The truth. No drama.
No screaming.
Just a slow, calm unraveling of everything they tried to erase. Monday morning arrived like thunder. They brought a wheelchair. Clara pushed me into the courtroom. David was already there. Janet beside him. Both looking like they were at a funeral. Maybe they were. The judge was young. Sharp. Her name was Judge Morales. And the second I saw her eyes sweep over me and rest there, I knew she'd seen it all before. Too many elderly women discarded like furniture. Too many fake smiles from greedy children. Too many lies wrapped in family dinners and forged signatures. Jasmine stood and laid it all out, piece by piece. Then she nodded toward me. Mrs. Thatcher, would you like to speak? I gripped the arms of my chair and stood, slowly but strong. My knees trembled, but my voice didn't. I may be 78, I said. But I am not gone. I am not broken. I am not confused. I remember everything. And I remember who my son used to be. Before money became more important than love. I held up the forged letter. The real will. The photo. The calendar. Everything. And I told the story, not like a lawyer but like a mother. Raw. Real. Unforgiving. David tried to interrupt. Judge Morales held up a hand like she was swatting a fly. You'll have your chance, Mr. Thatcher. Sit down. By the end the room was silent. Not a breath. Not a cough. Not even a rustle of paper. And then the judge spoke. In my opinion, Mrs. Thatcher is not only of sound mind, she's one of the clearest and most compelling witnesses I've heard in this courtroom. She turned to David. Your power of attorney is hereby revoked. The will is being restored to original status. And the state will open an investigation into potential elder abuse and fraud. Then she turned to me. Mrs. Thatcher, you're going home. Tears ran down my cheeks. Clara grabbed my hand. Lila ran from the back row and wrapped her arms around me so tight I thought my ribs might break. I didn't care. I was free. Not just from the facility. Not just from David's plan. But from the silence. The loneliness. The feeling that my life had been packed into a corner and left to rot. That day I didn't just win a case. I reclaimed my name. My story. My family, at least the part of it that mattered. But there was still one more thing I had to do. And David, he had one more lesson to learn. I should have gone home and rested. I should have celebrated with cake and tea and old photo albums. But you don't walk away from something like this without finishing the story. David had tried to bury me, tried to erase me, and he thought the courtroom was the end. But he forgot something. Some justice doesn't come from judges. Some comes from truth told out loud where the whole world can hear. The first thing I did was call the local paper. Clara knew someone, an old friend's daughter who worked as a reporter for the Tallahassee Tribune. Her name was Melanie, and she showed up the next day with a recorder and red eyes. You remind me of my grandmother, she said, setting up at my kitchen table. Then you'll understand why I'm doing this, I told her. Because someone somewhere has a grandma too. And they're in a bed right now wondering if the people they love have forgotten them. I gave Melanie everything. The letters. The will. The photos. Even the voice recordings of David and Janet discussing the money they expected to receive once I was no longer a legal obstacle. Melanie didn't cry. But she took my hand and said, You're not just saving yourself. You're warning everyone else. The article went live 2 days later. Front page. She was left to die in a nursing home. What she did next shocked everyone. My name was in bold letters. My face, wrinkles, age spots, proud eyes, stared back from the screen like a lighthouse. The story went viral by the end of the week. People from all over started sending letters, emails, voicemails. My mother's in a home too. Thank you for standing up. Your courage helped me report my brother for stealing our dad's pension. You reminded me to go visit my grandma this weekend. I almost forgot. I didn't expect to become a symbol. I just wanted my life back. But sometimes fighting for yourself gives other people permission to fight for themselves too. Then came the knock at the door. 2 weeks after the article, a man in a gray suit, state investigator. He asked if I was willing to testify in a broader case, not just against David but against the entire Cedar Pines facility. Neglect, fraud, patient swapping, financial abuse. They'd found more victims. Dozens. I said yes. And when I walked into that building again, it wasn't in a wheelchair. It was on my own 2 feet.
No pills. No confusion. No silence.
Veronica was arrested. So was the facility director. David and Janet were both charged with conspiracy to commit elder fraud. Their bank accounts were frozen. Their faces were on the evening news, not for raising money for a charity, not for hosting a fundraiser, but for trying to erase the woman who gave them everything. But I didn't gloat. I didn't smile when the cuffs went on, because the truth is revenge is loud. But dignity whispers. And it leaves echoes that outlast the shouting. Lila came to live with me for the summer. She sat next to me every morning drinking tea and listening to my stories, real stories, not the ones they tried to write over me. I want to be like you, she said one evening. Strong, quiet, but sharp. I took her hand. You already are. And room 218? The other Mary? Her name was Nancy. Turns out her family didn't even know she was still alive. Clara helped track down her niece in Oregon. They flew in, took her home. She called me last week. Thank you, she said. I thought I was forgotten. I told her, we don't forget the ones who remember us. As for my house, my real home, 44 Sycamore Lane, it had been transferred to David illegally, but Jasmine filed the paperwork. And last month I opened the front door again. The wallpaper was peeling. The floorboards creaked. But it was mine. Mine. I stood in the living room for a long time. Just me. In silence. Not the dead kind. Not the buried alive kind. The kind of silence that feels like peace. Like the end of a storm. I planted roses out back. Franklin's favorites. Lila helped me dig the holes. She asked, so what now? I smiled. Now? I live. The world kept spinning. The headlines moved on. But in one little house on one quiet street lived a woman they tried to erase. And failed. What I did next. I wrote it all down. Every word. Every betrayal. Every twist. Every win. Because someday someone will ask how I survived it all. And I'll hand them this story and say, because I remembered who I was, when everyone else forgot. Some doors you walk through and forget what was behind them. Others, you walk through and nothing is ever the same again. That's what it felt like the day I left Cedar Pines. For the last time.
No nurse pushing me. No clipboard. No confusion.
Just me holding my granddaughter's hand, as I walked down that hallway where I'd once been dumped like I didn't matter. But now, every step I took said I did. I glanced back once. Not out of fear, but to remind myself that I came back for me, that I didn't let them finish me. I wish I could tell you that life goes back to normal after something like this. Doesn't. You're different, wiser, maybe a little harder around the edges. But you also carry something more powerful than anger. You carry truth. These days I sit on my porch most evenings.
Lila brings me isetteä.
Sometimes Clara joins us. We laugh. We cry. We remember. And sometimes, I get letters. From strangers. From daughters, sons, grandmothers, grandsons. People who say, Mary, your story, it was my story too. That's when I know I didn't just save myself. I help shine a light in the dark corners no one wants to look in. To anyone out there listening, if someone has betrayed you, if someone tried to silence you, if someone made you feel small or invisible or unworthy just because you were aging or trusting or too kind, don't stay quiet. Tell someone. Write it down. Share your truth. Because stories like mine, they're not rare. They're just hidden. Now before I go, tell me this. Where in the world are you watching my story from? Drop your country or city in the comments. I'd love to know where you are. And if this story touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you never miss another one of my true family stories. But more than that, tell me in the comments. Has someone ever betrayed you like David betrayed me? Was it a child? A friend? A partner? Let it out. Let others know they're not alone. This isn't just my story. It might be ours. Thank you for staying with me till the very end. From my heart to yours, this was Mary Lorraine Thatcher's story. And it's one I'll never let anyone erase again.